This is Stephen Dominguez of the Pure BS Podcast and the Science Faction Podcast. You're listening to the BS Podcast Network.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Lukewarm Cinema Podcast. My name is Austin. Today
I'm George.
Hey, and it's Chris too.
Everybody, we have a super exciting episode for you guys today. We're actually not going to give it away yet because we'll get into the interview, but we'll say some things we're excited about this person we're interviewing. George, go ahead and lead with what you're excited about with this interviewee.
What you guys are about to hear is something that will change your mind about the movie Game in Las Vegas. I think this guy is extremely intelligent and savvy. And if you guys aren't entertained by this, you guys got to let us know what we could do to be more entertaining, because this guy is next level.
Christian?
Yeah, this I didn't know a bunch about the person we're interviewing, and then I saw him in the news, some interviews. Really fascinating guy, and kind of like what George was saying, the movie scene in Las Vegas, it's not just the major people. It's not just like, oh, here's AMC and Cinemark and all that stuff. There's something interesting going on, and we're gonna have that explained later.
Well, everybody, as of right now, this is us before the interview. We're gonna head on over there here in a few minutes, but we'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We're here with John. John, if you could please go ahead and introduce yourself and Burger 51 for us.
Sure. I'm Supreme Commander John of the Burger 51 Army. We are a drive-in movie theater right here on Decatur Boulevard in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we're doing things a little bit differently. And I think that you're probably able to see that now that you're here. Definitely not your regular type of theater. We're very, very focused on something that is probably the most important aspect of film that seems to be the least appreciated. And by that, I'm referring to short film. Burger 51 Drive-In Theater is totally dedicated to being what I believe is the only short venue in America. I don't know of any other theaters where you go and specifically watch short films 365 days a year. That's our forte, and that's what we're really focused on trying to do, because there are so many short artists out there who, I'm not saying they're underappreciated, but they're certainly underviewed. It's a very strange world where we have an Academy Award for Best Short Film, yet you can't really see those short films anywhere. Sure, you could look them up on the internet, but that takes away the magic of film when you're watching it on your mobile device, when you're not in a designated theater, a viewing venue, whether it's a walk-in or a drive-in. And, that's pretty much what the main focus is how to best promote those artists. And, everybody likes to think of themselves as a storyteller or a filmmaker. I personally became fascinated with it as a result of a restaurant that I own on Fremont Street, where we do all of our own little skits and rock videos. And it's as primitive as shooting with an iPhone, but then you start seeing some good, product, and you think, wow, I could do it just like the big guys can. And so you become more and more fascinated with those who actually do spend the time and the money and just throw so much of themselves into making a short film, because it's just such a thankless thing. You drop $10,000 on it, you drop 6 months of your time and years of planning, and then at the end you have nothing to show for it but pride. And when that person, that sense of accomplishment, it's neat, but you want to share it with other people. And so my hope is that we can get enough short artists. So far, we've gotten quite a few very good ones, but I really do want to network with other short artists and let them know that there is a another way to go out there. You don't have to labor in obscurity. What you could actually do is submit not just to film festivals, but to the Burger 51 Theater, and hopefully other theaters that'll come into existence. I'm hoping that we'll set the example, because all theaters are ultimately a commercial enterprise, and theaters aren't going to exist unless other entrepreneurs view them as profitable. And right now we're a brand new company. We're 25 days old, but we're profitable. We get enough people in to where others will say, wow, so there is a market for short film. And I hope there'll be walk-ins as well as drive-ins, where short artists could have an opportunity to just share what is in their head and their heart. Because when you're in there and you're spending so much money and so much time, and the hopes and dreams of yourself and all of your friends and colleagues who've helped you out in this, and then you go, wow, it's a wrap, it's done. And then you and the people who made it watched it, and you're proud about some aspects of it. You feel you could have done a little better in some other aspects. No one ever achieves perfection. We chase perfection, but you don't achieve it. And it's very interesting, though, to think that these people have nowhere to share this at all. I mean, you throw it on the internet, it just gets lost in the noise. And when people do see it, they're not in the proper frame of mind. And, we're a very retro place here at Burger 51. And so to me, the proper frame of mind is you have to have some popcorn in your hand and a box of Milk Duds sitting there. And you have to be with somebody that's a friend of yours, somebody you care about. Because, no one wants to experience that movie by themselves. It's to experience a movie, it's really a communal thing. You can't lock a person in a box and have them watch a movie and expect to get the same experience. Movies are designed to be social, to have to, elbow wrestle with the person sitting next to you in the theater over who gets the arm wrestle or the armrest. And that's part of the movie experience, because when something funny happens or something scary happens or something sad happens, it's that human connection between you and the other viewers. And so I feel that short film artists are cheated because they only have the internet to throw their stuff out to, and there's no social connection. Now, granted, in this weird age of COVID virus where everybody's social distancing, I've got all my my viewers in cars, and so it's not that large of a group, but at least you're with your primary tribe, the 2 or 3 people in the car with you. But you can look out the window and look at the other people in the car next to you laughing or being frightened, and there still is that sense of community at a drive-in. That I think does satisfy what it is every short artist is searching for, and that's just to connect, to do something with that's just, everybody has a dream, and for those who are brave enough and talented enough to get that dream out on celluloid, it's just so sad when you don't share that dream with other people. But hey, I don't want to hog your mic. I could literally go on forever and ever about the injustice of the short artist, because every great Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, every great started out making shorts. Just when they're a kid with a Super 8mm in their backyard, they did, and that's how they got great. That's how they got their practice, is through shorts. But shorts really aren't a remedial venue. I mean, we play some very, very sophisticated films here. We've been blessed because we get a lot of good 5-star reviews, online, and a lot of it's for the hamburgers. And I was laughing about one review. We got a 1 star, and And from this person who totally didn't get it, they go, "Oh, the food was great. The people are really nice, and the place looked cool, but I hated the movies." and like, well, that's good. That's their opinion. But obviously, they weren't expecting indie film, and that's all we do, and that's probably all we'll ever do. But there's a big enough audience out there for people who like indie film. Now, granted, we have sort of confined ourselves to either the horror genre or the sci-fi genre because of the fact that, it's easier to develop a story. It's very challenging to develop a complex love story in 5-6 minutes,
Yes.
But horror or sci-fi is a very communicable thing where we can pass these thoughts on the storyline on to somebody. But again, please ask any questions. I'm dying to hear how the rest of the world perceives Burger 51, because we're so new. It's just kind of in our own heads right now. We're not actually able to view ourselves as others view us yet.
I definitely like to comment on the fact that you chose independent films. A big critique of movie theaters and like the movie industry is that there's, the set AAA films, those are shown in regular theaters, Cinemark, AMC, all that. And people who enjoy a lot of film realize, hey, there's all these good independent works that they just don't get seen. It's a loop. Oh, here's the next Marvel movie. Here's the next Fast and Furious, XYZ. And, I know somebody who's made an independent film and they put a lot of work into those. So I think from that perspective, people would think it's really cool that this is happening, what you're doing here.
Oh,
I can definitely see like you taking this and a kid coming in who's like 12, 13 years old and is like, I would love to make my own short film that will be played at this drive-in one day. I think like you're driving the community of Las Vegas to understand that although the work may seem simple in your head, it actually has a lot bigger of an impact.
So you kind of touched on it earlier, but what made you decide sci-fi movies specifically for Burger 51? Because the theming, all around it feels like you're taking it straight out of the 50s.
Well, I saw this piece of land here, and I thought it was a good price because it's in an area that I really like here. I like the general neighborhood and the traffic count. So I thought, okay, I should do something with this. And I thought to myself, maybe I have a sit-down restaurant on Fremont Street, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll actually make a drive-through version of that sit-down restaurant. And then I realized part of the magic of that restaurant was that we play our own rock videos, that we film ourselves and star in ourselves. And I thought, okay, I'll erect a big screen and in the drive-thru where they could really watch the same videos that they did at the restaurant. Then I kind of had my artist friend doodle it all together, and I looked at it, and my best friends were staring at it, and I said, this just doesn't feel like your restaurant. And one of them said, it should be called Sci-Fi Burger, and you should play sci-fi films like a drive-in movie theater. And I said, you're entirely right. So then I moved forward with that concept until my attorney told me that sadly Disney has a sci-fi drive-in theater, and Disney happens to be the most sue-happy company on earth.
Corporate overlords.
Well, they have this image of that they're the good guy, which may or may not be the case, but you just certainly don't want to mess with a mouse. And my attorney, who had helped me for decades, I've always been involved in a lot of intellectual property battles from when I was in the fitness industry as well as being in the burger industry. And he just said, if you even try this, I'm just going to drop you as a client. And so I kind of got the picture that Sci-Fi Burger probably wasn't a good name. but it got me thinking about science fiction in general, and the number of people out there, the devotees to that genre. There's a whole lot of Trekkies, a whole lot of Star Wars fans, a whole lot of people in that genre. But as this evolved, it got less about science fiction, more about just, wow, there is an amazing untapped treasure trove of short film out there that's good. I mean, something that people should get out and see. But to answer your question, why sci-fi, that was it originally. And it just so happens that there are a lot of shorts in the sci-fi genre.
So, just so people know, what is the full experience like here at Sci-Fi Bird? Can you walk us through driving in and what they're going to experience from that point on?
Sure. You enter, and the lanes kind of force you to the right and takes you through what will be the single most, I believe that we're already the world's first experiential fast food. There is no experience per se at Burger King or McDonald's or what other drive-thrus, but the objective here is we're building this slowly, so we build it right. Well, we're only 25 days old, so it's not really that slow, but the entire drive-through will be built with some sense of animatronics where things move as your car progresses through the line. And that way, even if you've decided not to stay for the film, you'll still have an experience. But, that's the sort of the business model of the mission, is to be the world's first experiential fast food, to give people something, some wow factor above and beyond the cost of the burger. Our food is cheaper than the neighboring Jack in the Box here, so we certainly don't gouge. We just want people to have such a unique time that they'll, hopefully come back. But the ultimate goal is that they'll hopefully become a part of the short film viewing audience out there, and just appreciate something beyond the huge Hollywood blockbuster that takes $200 million to film or something ridiculous. Just know that people can actually get out there and film something that's very entertaining and very thought-provoking, and do so for a couple $1,000s, that the average person can do. I really hope that people out there listening who do have the inner fantasy about being making their own short films, don't chicken out. But remember, the number one method of chickening out is called procrastination. You just say, wow, I'm going to write that script, or I'm going to film this scene, and I believe you, but it doesn't, if it takes you 30 years to do it, your life's over. You have to do it now. It's hard to kick yourself in the butt and hurry up and get the things done that you're supposed to get done. Because a filmmaker, that's just a real complex individual who's got a lot of unique challenges. That's one of the reasons why we really wanted Burger 51 to be a drive-in movie theater, because when you do, I do glass bottle soda pop, and we do really neat retro candies, like you guys are here.
I'm sitting right next to a big hunk. I've never seen a big hunk in my life.
Big hunk and Abba Zaba and Whoppers.
A bit o' honey.
Oh yeah, all the old stuff. But we're doing everything possible to stay as retro as possible. And I think people appreciate it. But really and truly, we're here for the film, and we just want to tap into that community out there that appreciates short film. And so far we have, it's been so hot the past 25 days that our day crowd is minimal, because it's kind of brutal to sit in your car in the middle of the day, even though, and most people don't tend to believe how good our audio and video is. It's
The video was outstanding. When we were driving up, we mentioned like, wow, it's the daytime and we can see the screen clearly.
Yeah, it was very clear in the sunlight.
It's good, and the sound, our antenna is just booming. It's we we could get in big trouble if we turn it up even higher. It's got about a 10-mile radius, but we keep it to its minimal possible setting, which just really gives us a good sound here on the lot and bleeds over just a little bit to the
Scrambled
neighbors.
comms coming out of Burger 51.
Yeah.
I could probably just tune it in at my house and be like, oh, they're watching that movie today.
That's what this area of Vegas needed, though. I mean, I've driven past. We're located right across from Western High School. My dad was a football coach at Western High School in like 2012, so I'm familiar with that area from that point in time. And there's been nothing lively about this area other than Meadows Mall
And even still,
and
that's kind of.
Marketon.
Well, I remember this specifically was like a Dairy Queen when I was
Yes.
growing up, and then it was like a wing place, and then I saw this place being built, and I was like, "Oh, that seems interesting."
No,
Like,
a lot
something
more
actually
interesting than
cool.
anything else that we had seen in the past. Like what you said, like the traffic, but I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of places here in Las Vegas to build this. Like, why this specific location?
Well, I live nearby, and my other job is also nearby, and so it just sort of made sense. But basically, this is a very middle-class area. It's not rich, it's not poor, it's just regular people. And I kind of wanted to test the concept out on regular people. I mean, too many people think of short film or indie film as being the appreciated only by the affluent, and I don't buy into that at all. I'm trying to demonstrate that the regular person, like I said, I did have one critique which kind of,
You're always gonna have that,
yeah,
though.
but kind of displayed the person's IQ and interest levels. But
That's a good way to put it.
But I just think that all socioeconomic classes can appreciate short film, and so I just wanted to do this in what I would consider to be as absolutely regular of a neighborhood as you could find in Las Vegas. The thoroughfare on Decatur here, there's a tremendous amount of people using this street going all the way up north, and I'm just such a believer that once people stop and give short film a try, they'll say, wow, that was pleasurable. It didn't change my life, but I felt a little bit more satisfied than I do when I go into a normal theater and watch a $200 million film, because you can kind of say that, okay, I see how he kept this low budget, but it was clever how he or she did keep it low budget. And that's what's so darn important is I just want to develop the dream. I would like to think that in some small way I contributed to some future Steven Spielberg who's maybe 12, 13 years old right now, and he comes in, for a shaved ice and a popcorn and a burger because his parents drug him here, and it fascinated him. And he thought, wow, you mean regular people like me who's just holding an iPhone, we can make movies too? And, that's not self-evident. You're not really born with that knowledge, because when you go to theaters and see major corporate film all the time, you realize that, oh, wow, that's a $200 million budget. And when we expose a child to an indie film, that even a child could say, okay, yeah, they kind of did that with a handheld and, had a bunch of his buddies, and it gets them to fantasizing about how they can do it. And that's the first step toward getting it done, toward achievement. And I don't know, maybe, if you think about it, that you could change that child's life, and because of the nature of film, that child could in turn change the lives of 100 million people. They could make the next Casablanca. You never know.
So I've been to your website. That's how I was able to get in touch with you. So what is the submission process like for somebody with a short film or independent film they wish to have here?
Real simple. Just submit a link to where we could watch it and download it. And if we like it, then we'll email you back and say, hey, that's neat. Do you mind if we fit it in the rotation? And, we always want to let people know well in advance when we'll show it. That way they can drag their friends over, because that's the fun thing. I mean, going to a drive-in and watching your own stuff, that's cool. I mean, my dream is I'm like every other closet filmmaker. As soon as I actually get this, give me a year to where I've got this place working right, and then we'll change our focus and put it on trying to make some of our own in-house films, because that's going to be the make or break difference with me and my staff on whether or not we go insane. Because if you work in an assembly line, even though your assembly line is making the best darn burger you can and the best darn glass bottle soda or shaved ice, even though you think you're doing a real good job, life can get boring. You need some fantasy, and so I want myself and the workers here to have that fantasy of, what are we going to shoot next week, And having the camaraderie and the community that develops when people, as you're flipping burgers, go, hey, well, what about this monster? And what if he, attacks this city and blah, 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 blah. And, dreaming things up like that. And then watching that dream come to fruition with a team, I think it'll be a real satisfying way to keep people together. At my other restaurant, we have our average employee average is 6.5 years. And that's only because we moved here 9 years ago from a different city where we picked up and relocated several families. I've always been a belief that, if you could hit somebody's economic number where they're able to, support themselves, it's so tragic to see churn and burn in the workplace, to see people shift jobs all the time, because, we're all born with a family, but your secondary family are really your coworkers, and it's neat to keep people together like that. And I hope to achieve the same record at Burger 51 that I did in a very tough industry where the average is 3 to 4 months, where I'm at, quite a few years. But I think in Burger 51, when you look at a fast food drive-through place, I would imagine there's tends to be a huge disconnect with employees. And I hope to create that. It's like, I was always marveling over what Starbucks achieved. I thought it was the most brilliant thing, because for years, if some kid worked at Burger King and you say, hey, what do you do? They go, I work at Burger King, and they're ashamed of the fact. And then the same city, same neighborhood, another food service worker who makes the exact same says, I work at Starbucks. And they're excited about the fact.
Stoked.
So Starbucks apparently created some employee culture that made everybody think, wow, it's cool to be a food service worker. So it always intrigued me. And I think that I could do that same thing to make people really feel connected here. And there's just no better way to feel connected than to get all the employees in making a small indie film, so we could all, have that dream of greatness. But remember, the dream of greatness isn't whether or not your film is celebrated and wins an Academy Award and makes money and acts as a springboard for bigger and better things in your life. I mean, the real mark of a film is, did you do your best? Did you had the idea for the story, you executed, and you did the best you can do. And that's the important thing. And you connected with a lot of friends. I find in these indie films, there's a huge, at the end, the credits. It's amazing how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that they give credit to. the same as what you'd see in a full-length movie. And I realize that it's all part of the culture, that they're bringing together talented friends of theirs who do a little of this and a little of that. And these talented friends are able to make the film happen. And so they certainly do deserve the credit. But, go ahead.
I think that's really cool. And something that, like, the way I look at the format and how you're creating an experience is, I think when we look back nostalgically at how the 50s looked and older times, it was always about how we had to meet in a place to do a thing. We meet at the malt shop, meet at the arcade, meet at the theater. And it wasn't just doing the thing, it was experiencing that thing together. So if I read you right, I think that's kind of what you're trying to recreate in this drive-in, is bringing that back.
Yeah, I mean, for the employees, absolutely. For the neighborhood, for people who come here often, we already have people who come here twice a day. They seem to like the burgers, and so it's good that when you have repeat customers to the level that we do, it becomes a real challenge. It's like that Queen song, it's a challenge before the whole human race, and I'd never lose. It's a challenge, this uphill battle of how do I keep delivering content, because if this guy's going to come here twice a day, every day, shit, I need to keep giving him new film,
Yep.
And I just hope that, I don't think it's possible to exhaust the talent base on the planet Earth. I mean, unfortunately, I'm limited to film that's of a major language, even though there's some really great short films out there that would be in Polish or Lithuanian. It's just, we're pretty much doing films in English and Spanish because that's, the neighborhood here. And it's just a little too exotic for most people to appreciate short film in Korean. But we have some, but still, within the realm of English and Spanish language films, there's a tremendous number out there. I mean, I'm just dying to tell everybody who is listening, if you've got a short film, just submit it. And even if we don't play it, it doesn't mean that your film isn't great. It just means that it didn't fit into, what we're trying to do, because we have to limit our films to 8 minutes. We like to keep it about a 20-minute roll. The reason why, it's real simple. It's real primitive mathematics. We have 20 parking spots. We can't possibly service a customer faster than one every minute. So, 20 spots is really all we need. I mean, this is a boutique drive-in movie theater. So we give people a 20-minute roll, and that way they're able to go. They show up at any time they want to, and if that 20-minute roll is basically 2 8-minute films and several little tiny 1-minute shorts, and it doesn't matter when you show up. When people submit films that are really good, but the film itself is 25 minutes, I just can't show that, because then we'd have to have start times and stop times. Whereas now you just show up anytime you want to. You might catch the last several minutes of something that already started, but if you just hang in there for 20 minutes, you'll be able to see it again.
So when going back to the way you treat your employees and that employee timeline, because I myself worked in fast food and I understand the revolving door that is fast food. Did you learn that aspect of treating your employees as a family and getting them involved through trial and error, or was this something taught to you at a young age?
Well, my upbringing was a little bit different, but I'm from a small family business, and same thing. My dad used to boast about how long his average employee count was. I'd like to think that I beat him, because he was he was in a much more stable industry, whereas I'm in
You're in New Waters.
Yeah, I'm in the tourist sector in Fremont Street.
Yes.
And now fast food, it's even bigger churn over. So, no, I want to see if people can stick around because I seldomly see people change industries. You know, it's sad to see if you're a cook and you jump from restaurant to restaurant, whether it's sit down dining or fast food. It's just sad to see them keep changing jobs because they're just changing for a like job. Why not just stick and develop with one company and make it more meaningful? And just part of the meaning is I want to give everybody the opportunity to do for that kid, that 13-year-old kid that we don't know who that person is. Just everybody who's here, whether you're flipping the burger or making the popcorn or uncapping the soda pop bottle, you're still putting that spark of magic into the kid who is sitting in one of those cars and decides at that point, wow, I want to be a filmmaker, you know, because I never thought they could. You know, especially, it's like when you see kids from an economically deprived background or traditionally, if there were no role models of their race or religion, and suddenly they see a role model. Wow, you mean a kid who looks like me and is from my neighborhood could actually do something like this? That's a neat thing, and to put that magic into their heads. And I don't know, I just, my friends joke a lot. They say, now what you're really doing for the kids is you're giving them a place to come make out at. And
that is a very valid question.
No, and it really is because, you know, I'm 55, and so when I was in my teen years, half of my films were taken in a walk-in and half of my films were taken in a drive-in setting. And yeah, drive-ins are where I used to go with my dates, and those are some great memories. And it's just really sad that kids nowadays don't have that opportunity.
I believe with you we have 2 drive-ins now. One of them shows, you know, the multi-blockbuster films, and then this one is the only one with independent. It seems.
Right. There still is one struggling drive-in, and hopefully it's going to make a comeback. I just think that the older business model of the drive-in has its inherent flaws because it takes too darn much acreage, and with projection technology it limits them to just complete darkness before. So if you only get 2 shows a night, I mean, whereas we could do shows 24 hours a day. I mean, and we can, because we're focused on shorts, we don't need that much acreage. So it just makes more sense all the way around. And the other thing too is, not everybody, when's the last time you guys really said that you're ready to commit to a 3-hour experience? Like, you know, I took my wife to go see Tarantino's recent, Hollywood.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, and it was a long film. I really appreciated it because it was reminiscent of when I grew up. And so there was a lot of neat imagery for me. But most people aren't ready for a 3-hour commitment. But I find that everybody's ready for a 20-minute commitment. Everybody. And that's the neat thing about Burger 51. You don't have to, it doesn't matter the time. Now, we do divide it daytime versus after 9 o'clock. We do the, hardcore films after 9 o'clock. Stuff that kids shouldn't be seeing.
Oh, right.
Right.
And it's publicly viewed. You can just drive by it and see it. That's great, too.
Right. Well, people laugh because the way we worded it on the sign said adults only after 9 p.m. And people thought, wow, you're playing porno on a public street?
Just some softcore. Just some softcore, nothing major.
And it's funny that's where their minds went, how we demonize a beautiful sex act. It's not that. It's that I don't want kids seeing chainsaw decapitations, and that's
the good stuff.
That's what we mean. So, if you really want to see some wild, gory, old-fashioned, all-American slasher violence, Yeah, come to Burger 51 late night, and that's when we do that stuff because, the kids hopefully won't be up at that hour. But everything is real family friendly and PG until 9 o'clock. So
I think that I think about how like people like in the modern age, because we have the internet and we have access to all this content all the time, we consume content like spontaneous. So the fact that you could do something like I think about when I'll get some food and go into my room and say, oh, let's find a video that's 10 or 15 minutes long, right? And I'll sit there and I'll eat and I'll watch it. I think, if you apply that to the movie industry, it's like going to drive-in and then watching a movie for maybe, 10 minutes, 8 minutes. So I think like people think it's really foreign of an idea, but I think if people gave it a chance, they think it's really cool that you have this format here.
Do you see this expanding at all? Like if say this really hits big, would you want a location with maybe 2 screens? Or like
that had never occurred to me. The 2 screens. Very interesting. I sure everybody fantasizes about their business being successful enough to actually replicate itself. And I think this is fairly replicable. But 2 screens, that's interesting. The old Dairy Queen next to me seems to have finally closed down forever. And
that little Cuban place is definitely closed.
Yeah.
That place was unsanitary. I don't know if you ever went in there, John. Do you like Cuban food?
No, I loved it. I was very sad.
It's authentic. That's the thing. Like all Cuban food places are very unsanitary, and that's what makes them delicious. You get the guy with the hairy arms. I literally saw a guy eat beans with a spoon, and then he used that same spoon to serve somebody. I was like,
you got to risk a C rating for some food, George. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I wish they'd come back. I don't know what's going to happen with that land, but yeah, maybe you put a second screen there that faces the opposite way, but boy, that'd be really hard logistically to do that. I don't think that Burger 51 necessarily needs to be a bigger operation here in this location. I'd rather put it down in Henderson or over on the east side or the north side or something, just so that more kids could get a chance to become enchanted with film. I know I'd love to do that. And again, it's just up to whether or not I can continue to get short artists who are willing to get out of their comfort zone. Because a lot of people are afraid of rejection, and I think you'd be surprised as to, like, some of our most popular films were just really done on a micro budget, and you could tell, but that's okay, And so I'm just encouraging everybody to go to burger51.com and submit some films, and odds are we'll find some slot to play you in somewhere,
So, from reading your advertisements, you guys say that tinfoil hats are welcomed here. So we're a very laid back podcast. We like to ask weird questions. So for you personally, do you think the moon landing was faked? Because I know that's a big one that everyone's like, oh, the moon landing was faked. You can tell from this footage.
I was devastated yesterday because there was some news about they actually were able to shoot a laser beam from Earth at the moon, and they were actually, I don't know if you read this, able to hit something that they had left on the moon and made it bounce back, which just crushes me because it's evidence that we were there. But then again, being the skeptic I am, I'd like to read the article more in depth. I've never, even as a small child, felt that we, pierced the Van Allen belt and made it to the moon. I don't think it's biologically possible. because you hear astronauts right now and talk to them about this, and they're just so stoked because they say, our materials are getting better and better, and someday we're going to be able to go through the Van Allen belt. and these are astronauts now, and everybody wants to conveniently forget the folly of 1969. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and while we might point the finger at our forefathers and say that they were hucksters, you don't understand the pressure that they were under in the Cold War, because we had to prove that we were better. And even if we weren't necessarily better in space exploration, there was one thing that we were vastly better than the Russians at, and that's filmmaking. And, whether or not it was Stanley Kubrick that did it, or whether it was any other artist that created that illusion, it was a pretty impressive illusion. I still don't believe that humans, and here's the most interesting thing. Have you ever seen the Chinese rover that touched down a few years back and sent back the images? Fascinating, because the moon isn't powdery white like we've been led to believe. The Chinese rover is up there and it's brown dirt.
Yeah.
It's a visual illusion when we look through our atmosphere at the moon, and it looks powdery white. So Kubrick and the boys said, well, let's make it powdery white. That's what people are expecting to see. But these are films shot in color in 1969 and now, and they're shooting it now, and it's brown. And it's powder white when we did it there. So there's a lot of hokiness going on. But again, these guys had to make it happen. And bringing us to what's going on in the world right now, there's a horrible pandemic. And I don't care what conspiracy theorists are out there. It's real. I know people who've been very, very sick. And I'm very concerned for the elderly members of my family and stuff. And what pisses me off is that we spent $9 trillion that, anybody my age or older doesn't even have to worry about, because we're just passing that debt on to the kids, and they'll have to pay for it someday. And it's sick that we've done that, but we really got nothing for it, because we're no closer to a vaccination. In World War II, we had to beat the Japanese, had to. And so we took an endless amount of money, we took the greatest minds, and we took them all out in the desert, called it the Manhattan Project, and said, you guys are not leaving this room until you have developed a bomb to stop the Japanese with. And they did it. They achieved it. It was a culture of achievement. And we just don't have the intellectual or moral fortitude nowadays to do the same thing, just to take our best minds, lock them in a room, and say, you guys are not leaving until we have a vaccination. And we could have easily done that for the $9 trillion that we wasted. And so it's sad. But
Almost like the heroic age of advancement is been forgotten somewhere,
Yeah.
They could have had those people, like you said, with all the great minds we have, it seems like everybody, instead of saying, let's come to a solution, is saying, it's not my problem, figure it out.
Yeah. Sad. But bringing this back to film, you do know that there will be some tremendous movies made on the subject of pandemic.
Oh, yes.
But not just, silly horror films that a lot of people thought this one was based off of, but, there'll be some beautiful love stories like the Titanic, about human struggles that occurred during this interesting time in life, when who would have thought a love story would have erupted out of a ship sinking in the North Atlantic, but it turned out to be one of the biggest blockbusters ever. And big blockbusters will come out about this period and the struggles people have. I've certainly had some struggles because I'm in the restaurant and tourist industry, and I've been very fortunate for the government assistance that I've received. And, I'm just hoping that, you know, a cure comes soon so that people can go back to leading normal lives. Because if you think about the kids out there, these are your formative years when you should be out there making out with chicks and, you know, like 2 or 3 different chicks at the same party, you know.
That's what I'm talking about. I
Yeah,
would love
right.
to partied with you back then.
Well, but that's, you know, that's what a 16, 17-year-old boy should be doing. It's very normal. And now you know, I have kids, and the parents of these girls, you know, they pretty much want a full blood panel before they'll even let my boy take her out somewhere. You know, it's tragic, and I just want to see the psychological damage that's happening to our culture. You know, as Americans, we stand further apart than Europeans do. It's just part of our frontier machoism. But now, this new culture, you know, 6 feet apart. Jesus. And that the kids are being trained that this is a normal way to interact. And it's tragic, you know?
Thought of a child being born during pandemic time and growing up and not knowing the world before that, I think is a crazy thought. Because they're shaping the way that they view the whole world. So I could definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, there will be some very interesting films that come out. Isn't it strange that we live in a time where theaters have been shut down, and now theaters can't even reopen because production houses don't want to let them show the films right now for a variety of reasons, because they all have their formulas, their marketing formulas as to how to release these films. Because if they
That is true.
It's science, and if they don't release them properly, you can't blame the production company. They've got $200 million wrapped up in something. It has to be a
Profitable.
Yeah, you can't just quietly release it on some street corner. It'll fizzle out, you know. And lawsuits are between the theater chains and the movie production houses, and it's so sad that film is now, I mean, film has always been about profit, but it's just so ugly right now. But I do understand everybody's point of view. Another reason why just small indie film, it's, you know, it's not for profit. It's the difference between watching college football and pro football. I will not watch pro football. I have moral issues with it. For one, it's being played on Sunday, but I can get into that later. But the college football, to me, you know, that sense of amateur athletics where you root for your university, and I think college football is a better show. And this is the same equivalent in indie filmmakers. You know, they're not the pros, but they do a darn good film that we should all watch and appreciate, you know?
Yeah, it's like the college players are like, they're giving it everything because they want the NFL to pick them up. And then indie films are just like, hey, I'm just pouring my passion out into this. You know, I just want people to see it. So I can definitely see, like, you get a more authentic, genuine experience out of independent films than, say,
There's such a micro percentage of people that will ever get to experience what that kind of money looks and feels like. And it gives a chance for those people to really shine. So my pitch to you here, John, is do you ever plan on doing a film festival? Because there's a lot of like indie film festival type thing. Do you plan on doing any kind of sort of like competition-esque?
Right. It'd have to happen within the confines of how we normally operate the business here, because, you know, people they need to be very short films. They do need to go through and the same way. It'd be very challenging. It's the old question, who has the right to vote? You know, is it this esteemed panel, or is it the viewers, the general public? Who, you know, how would they cast their votes, and how do you keep these votes valid, you know? So it would be a neat thing, and to have a Best Picture award, but it would have to be we're showing 2 PG films a day and 2 R films each night. So, there's probably 700 films a year being shown here. So how do you get people to vote on which film? Because the same person would have had to have seen enough of these films to have a broad cross-section, point of reference. So I don't know. I would love to do that. I just need
Yeah, like a best film of the week type, the little form they fill out or some little survey.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you highlighted that. Yeah, I'm not going to be watching every film, but definitely one that sticks out a little more than the others. I don't know, something to ponder. I know your mind's always running, like, to come up with this, the Heart Attack Grill. Like, does your mind stop, like, at all, or are you thinking about the next move?
No, actually, I'm just very obsessed with how to make this. My big challenge right now is how to communicate to people that the drive-in is for the daytime. Right now, the nights, it's absolutely packed. Daytime, I need to get more people in during the day. I think that's a function of it not being so darn hot outside. It's supposed to hit 110 today.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah,
heat wave next week.
Yeah, you're, like you said earlier, people being in their cars, you're going to melt out here in the Vegas summer.
But shaved ice.
But
That's how you got shaved ice.
Yeah, we do sell an awful lot of shaved ice.
There's no good shaved ice places. Like they're on the outskirts. Bahama Bucks, I think, was one, but to come by, this is near me. The shaved ice hub.
I think just getting the word out, only because this, you said your food is cheap. It's an experience, and you're seeing a movie
or several.
And I think, like, if my friends knew about this, they'd be like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And now I have to tell them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like for the Heart Attack Grill, how long did it take for that to like really kick into gear for everyone to be like, "Oh, you got to go to this place"? Like, how long is that process usually take in business?
It depends a lot on, word of mouth, which nowadays is whether or not you get picked up by the news stations and whether or not your people tend to social media to replicate this. And people tend to replicate things that are visual. It's hard to replicate a feeling on social media, but things that are purely visual. It always worked for my other restaurant because we would have such big burgers that that picture would tend to go viral. But here it's hard to take a lens and photograph this from any one angle and say, here is the Burger 51 experience and that photograph. So it's much more challenging for it to go viral, because it is really a complete experience from, when you drive in and there's a very friendly person talking to you and explaining the process, and you could buy dollar comics and old retro candies, and it's the burgers are very old-fashioned. The soda pop's all glass bottle, and then we're decorated with movie posters here, which are classic movie posters that people will just stare at and take photos of. So, and it's neat. It looks like a skateboard ramp here, because everything's tilted up, so that people can park properly and see the film. So,
when I look at some of the media, some of the interviews you were doing for Heart Attack Grill on the news, I think some of the controversy definitely stirred up a lot of people looking at Heart Attack Grill. So, I mean, I don't know, if this is your goal, but if you try to stir up some sort of controversy, I bet people would be flocking to this place.
Oh, true, but
like I can tweet like we may have saw an alien in the back cryogenically frozen. You have to go talk to John about that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really gimmicks. I'm just trying to, create a much better evening out. Because nowadays, I mean, say if you're a family of 4, It's very expensive. I mean, who has $100 to go out for a family of 4? Whereas here, a family of 4, you're looking at $25, and you're getting plenty to eat, plus the movies and everything. So we're trying to keep it cheap.
It's called, you decided, because obviously you weren't able to use the sci-fi name because Disney's out there
Assholes.
lurking in the shadows. But you chose Burger 51. I feel like, there's a very Area 51 theme going on here. What made you choose that?
I liked it. I like having the name Burger in the title because it truly lets people know that, they sell some substantive, the world's most ubiquitous sandwich, the burger. And that's a neat thing to communicate to people. The Area 51 thing, it's well known. I was hoping to venture into a lot of the conspiracy theorist short films, and that's a genre I really would love to get into, and I hope I get more submissions like that. That would be nice. But Burger 51 is it's a short, quick, memorable name. So
Yeah, to the point. So, like this little setup you have right here, this is like, have you just been spending all your time here at Burger 51, or like how do you divvy up your time between there and Heart Attack?
Oh, I'm at both. I'll do 6 hours a day at each. So, and things. The Heart Attack Grill is it's an institution in Las Vegas. It's been here long enough where it tends to be on the bucket list of those who come to town. But that's it's part of Uncle Charlie tourism, and by that I mean to say that when your Uncle Charlie comes to town, you obligated to show him Las Vegas, and so that's where most people take their Uncle Charlie, is the Heart Attack Grill, because it's so over the top that they feel that that's the only thing they really need to do, and then they could just push him away for the rest of his vacation, And whereas this is a completely different thing, because this is an ongoing 365-day-a-year neighborhood thing where we're developing a very stable relationship with people who, they depend on a good soda, they depend on a good burger, and ultimately they depend on a good film. And so, this business model is predicated on the short filmmaker, and I just hope that they can trust me enough to show their work in what I would consider to be the right light. I mean, you could show any piece of art, whether it's the Mona Lisa, if you don't mount it properly, it's going to look like hell. We are developing, I think, what is the coolest possible venue for a short film to be shown in. Because there's just nothing like latching on to a glass bottle orange crush as you're biting into the burger and you're with somebody you care about, and the video and the audio quality is really good, and we can get the impression that that the short filmmaker really wanted to hit. So again, I encourage everybody to submit your films.
So going back to the tinfoil hats, I know at Heart Attack Grill you guys provide a hospital gown for your customers. Are you guys going to start doing that with tinfoil hats here? Because I know I've asked my little sister about, it's like, tinfoil hats, and she's like, people, what? It's for food. And I think the last movie I saw do anything with tinfoil hats was like Signs, which is like almost 20 years ago, if not 20 years ago.
Signs?
Yeah, the M. Night Shyamalan one with Mel Gibson in it.
It's about aliens, right?
Yep.
It's an alien movie.
Oh.
Yeah, it's older.
Wait, it's like the little kid wears the tinfoil hat to protect himself, right?
Him and Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the last time I've seen anything with movies with tinfoil hats recently, but is that something possibly in the future providing?
We wrap all the burgers in tinfoil, so.
Make your own hats.
There you go.
Bam.
Yeah.
Well, John, we want to thank you very much for giving us your time out of your very, very busy schedule. For everybody listening, in the show notes, I will have the web address for Burger 51, as well as how to get in touch if you want to submit your own film. Please do. They very much want to have that. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under the Lukewarm Cinema Podcast. And until next week, we'll see you guys later.